Helicopters once reserved for millionaires are suddenly cheaper than some family cars. In 2026, ultralight helicopters are transforming private aviation with surprisingly low prices, simpler ownership, and technology once considered impossible. For decades, helicopters existed in the same world as yachts, private islands, and corporate jets. Most people never even considered owning one because the costs felt untouchable. And honestly, that illusion lasted a long time. But then something changed. Ultralight helicopters started shrinking the impossible. Smaller machines, lower fuel costs, simpler maintenance. Suddenly, flying wasn't locked behind millionaire lifestyles anymore. This rewires how people think about helicopters. What once felt exclusive now feels strangely reachable. Some pilots even call these aircraft the motorcycles of the sky because they strip flying down to its rawest form. And in 2026, the sky isn't distant anymore. Revolution Mini 500. And this is where things start getting weird. Because the Revolution Mini 500 comes in around $42,000. And for aviation, that almost sounds fake. People hear that number and immediately assume there's a catch somewhere. But then they look closer and realize this thing actually flies, cruises, and operates like a real helicopter. That's the part that completely changes the conversation. The Mini 500 carries a very old-school American engineering mindset. Keep it simple. Keep it functional. Don't overcomplicate things. Powered by a Rotax 582 engine producing around 65 horsepower, it cruises near 75 miles per hour with roughly 100 miles of range. Nothing excessive, nothing flashy. But honestly, that's exactly why people started paying attention to it. And then comes the fuel economy. This thing burns so little fuel that it genuinely messes with people's expectations. Some owners joke that it uses less fuel than their daily highway commute. For helicopters, that's insane, because suddenly, flying doesn't feel like financial punishment anymore. Ownership costs stop sounding terrifying. Flights stop feeling like luxury events. But the real trick is something most people never expect. The quick disconnect rotor system completely changes ownership practicality. In under 5 minutes, the main rotor can be removed without drama or complicated tools. That means storage becomes easier, transportation becomes easier, and the entire idea of helicopter ownership starts shifting into something portable. Imagine flying for the afternoon, breaking the helicopter down, towing it home, and parking it without needing a hangar. That sounds ridiculous. But this helicopter made people realize affordable aviation was no longer theory. It was already happening. And honestly, this is where helicopters stopped feeling financially impossible. Helicycle Turbine. This next one barely even looks real. The Helicycle Turbine version feels less like a civilian aircraft and more like something stolen from a military prototype hangar. The body is narrow, aggressive, and strangely futuristic. Even sitting still, it looks fast. And once people hear the price, around $39,000, things get even harder to believe. Because hidden behind that sleek frame is something almost unheard of in this category. A modified Solar T62 turbine engine. Not piston power, actual turbine power. In helicopters, turbines usually mean massive money, military-level budgets, serious operating costs. But somehow, this machine drags turbine technology into a completely different price bracket, and the performance instantly feels different. The throttle response is sharper. The sound is sharper. Even the way it accelerates feels more alive. It pushes close to 95 miles per hour, and for a second, you forget this thing belongs in the ultralight category at all. It feels closer to a miniature attack helicopter than a weekend hobby aircraft. But then the Helicycle gets even stranger. The folding rotor system allows the entire helicopter to fit inside a standard garage. Think about that for a second. You could theoretically fly somewhere, fold the blades down, and park it like a motorcycle. That idea alone completely changes how people imagine helicopter ownership. Of course, this machine demands commitment. Around 300 hours of build time is expected before it ever leaves the ground. And that's where a lot of people realize this helicopter isn't forgiving. It rewards patience and precision. Cut corners here, and the aircraft reminds you immediately. The digital engine management system constantly adjusts performance depending on temperature and altitude, which feels incredibly advanced at this price point. But that intelligence comes with responsibility. This helicopter is smart, but unforgiving. High reward, higher responsibility. And honestly, that danger is part of why enthusiasts became obsessed with it. Eagle Helicycle. Not everyone wanted the intensity of turbine power. Some pilots loved the Helicycle idea but wanted something calmer, simpler, and easier to live with. And that's exactly where the Eagle Helicycle enters the picture. Same core DNA, completely different personality. Instead of a turbine engine, this version uses a traditional piston setup that instantly lowers maintenance complexity, operating costs, and overall stress for first-time builders. Suddenly, ownership feels less intimidating. You're not constantly worrying about managing a tiny turbine-powered machine. You're learning instead of surviving. The Eagle Helicycle cruises around 70 miles per hour with nearly 120 miles of range, making it much more practical for relaxed cross-country flying. And honestly, that changes the emotional feel of the aircraft completely. This isn't about adrenaline anymore. It's about freedom. Quiet freedom. And this next part matters more than people realize. Buyers get access to structured training support that walks them through construction and flight preparation. That removes one of the biggest fears in home-built aviation. Beginners don't feel abandoned anymore. They feel guided. The modular design also makes ownership surprisingly flexible. The helicopter can break down into sections small enough to fit into a pickup truck. No hangar dependency, no oversized storage requirements. You can transport it, store it, and maintain it without building your entire life around aviation infrastructure. That's why so many people became interested in it. The Eagle Helicycle doesn't chase prestige or attention. It focuses on practicality, real ownership, real learning, real accessibility. This is the helicopter normal people could realistically see themselves building, understanding, and eventually flying. CH-7 Kompress. The entire vibe changes because the CH-7 Kompress doesn't look like a budget helicopter at all. At around $33,000, most people expect exposed frames, stripped-down cabins, and rough-looking engineering. Instead, this thing arrives with sleek Italian styling, smooth body lines, and an enclosed cockpit that feels way more refined than its price should allow. And honestly, that's the first surprise about the CH-7 Kompress. It doesn't feel cheap at all. It feels intentional. The Italian design influence is obvious from the moment you see it. Cleaner lines, sharper styling, and a far more modern look than most ultralight helicopters. But the real shift comes from its two-seat layout. Side-by-side seating completely changes the experience. This is no longer just a solo machine for quick weekend flights. You can share the flight with someone else, and for many pilots, that matters more than speed itself. Performance remains impressive too. Its Rotax 914 engine produces around 100 horsepower, allowing cruising speeds near 85 miles per hour with almost 200 miles of range. Inside, the cockpit feels futuristic with modern avionics and clean glass displays that stay easy to use. The biggest surprise is the noise reduction system. Unlike most small helicopters, the Kompress feels refined and quiet, making flights far more comfortable and memorable. Safari Kit Helicopter. Now, this next helicopter couldn't care less about elegance. The Safari Kit helicopter was never built to impress crowds at air shows. It was built to survive harsh conditions. For around $30,000, pilots get a machine that looks raw, mechanical, and completely honest about its purpose. And strangely enough, that rugged personality became one of the biggest reasons pilots respected it so much. Designed in South Africa, the Safari follows a very different engineering philosophy compared to sleek European ultralights. Instead of focusing on luxury or appearance, it prioritizes reliability above everything else. There's no unnecessary complexity or fragile features pretending to be innovation. Every part of the helicopter is designed with one goal in mind: keeping the aircraft flying when conditions become difficult. Its performance is practical and dependable. The Safari cruises at roughly 70 miles per hour with nearly 140 miles of range, powered by a modified Volkswagen engine. That engine choice perfectly reflects the helicopter itself. Volkswagen parts are affordable, familiar, and widely available, making maintenance easier and repairs far less intimidating for owners. What truly separates the Safari is its ability to handle rough environments. Dust, dirt, heat, and harsh terrain that would ground many recreational helicopters barely slow it down. Even the dust filtration system was inspired by demanding African bush operations, where debris constantly threatens engines and moving parts. Mosquito XE, and this is where everything changes, because the Mosquito XE doesn't just lower the price of helicopter ownership, it completely destroys the old stereotypes surrounding it. For decades, helicopters lived in the same mental category as yachts and private jets, machines normal people admired from far away but never realistically imagined owning. Then the Mosquito XE arrived around $45,000, and suddenly, that illusion started collapsing fast. People call it the motorcycle of the sky, and honestly, the comparison fits perfectly. Designed in Canada with a rugged engineering philosophy, the Mosquito strips flying down to its purest form. No luxury padding, no oversized cabin pretending to feel premium, no distractions, just a pilot, a set of controls, and open sky stretching in every direction. And weirdly, that simplicity became the entire appeal. The bare-bones cockpit almost feels rebellious compared to modern aviation trends. While larger aircraft bury pilots under screens, systems, and automation, the Mosquito focuses on the flying experience itself. It was built for people who actually want to fly, not babysit technology. And for many aviation enthusiasts, that feeling had been disappearing for years. Performance stays surprisingly strong, too. With a top speed near 90 miles per hour and around 120 miles of range, the helicopter feels capable without trying to become excessive. But the number that really shocks people is the empty weight, just 280 pounds. That's absurdly light for a helicopter. And low weight changes everything. Handling becomes sharper. Fuel efficiency improves. Operating costs stay lower. Every part of the aircraft feels more responsive because there's simply less mass fighting against the machine. For a second, flying starts feeling raw again. But here's where the Mosquito XE becomes deeply personal for builders. It's available as a kit. That means owners can assemble it themselves, learning every cable, every bolt, every moving component along the way. And that connection changes how pilots see the aircraft. You're not just flying it, you built it. Then comes the part nobody expects at this price: safety. The Mosquito includes an emergency auto-rotation system capable of bringing the helicopter down safely after complete engine failure. Features like that usually belong to helicopters costing several times more. Here, it feels almost unbelievable. And honestly, that's why the Mosquito XE became the emotional center of ultralight aviation. It didn't just make helicopters cheaper, it rewired how people think about personal flight forever. Skycraft Scout. And then comes the helicopter that completely breaks the industry. The Skycraft Scout arrives at around $22,000. And the moment people hear that number, everything changes. Because this isn't used. It isn't decades old. It isn't some abandoned experimental project hidden in a garage. This is a brand new helicopter, and somehow it costs less than many economy cars. For aviation, that feels almost impossible. The Scout doesn't chase luxury or extreme performance. In fact, its entire philosophy moves in the opposite direction. Accessibility comes first. Always. Top speed sits around 65 miles per hour, with roughly 80 miles of range. And honestly, those numbers barely matter once you understand what this helicopter is actually trying to do. It's trying to make vertical flight reachable. That's the real revolution here. Power comes from a modified motorcycle engine producing around 90 horsepower. Again, simple, affordable, easy to maintain. Everything about the Scout feels intentionally stripped down to remove barriers that kept normal people away from helicopters for decades. No oversized complexity, no impossible ownership costs, just practical flying. But then, the Scout introduces something nobody expected in this price category. A safety-focused control system designed to physically prevent dangerous pilot inputs. That changes everything for beginners. You can't aggressively overcorrect the controls. You can't accidentally push the helicopter beyond safe limits during normal operation. For first-time pilots, that feels almost unreal. It's like having an invisible instructor constantly protecting every movement you make. And suddenly, helicopters stop feeling terrifying to newcomers. Confidence replaces fear. The aircraft actively helps people learn instead of punishing every mistake instantly. That emotional shift matters more than raw performance ever could. Because for decades, helicopters carried this intimidating reputation. Dangerous, expensive, unforgiving. Reserved for highly trained professionals or wealthy owners with endless budgets. The Skycraft Scout attacks that entire image directly. It turns helicopter ownership into something approachable. And honestly, this is where the democratization of vertical flight becomes impossible to ignore. Helicopters are no longer billionaire toys, hiding behind exclusivity and massive costs. Machines like the Scout are pulling aviation back toward ordinary enthusiasts, hobby pilots, and people who simply dreamed of flying but never believed it could realistically happen. Ownership freedom suddenly feels real. And maybe that's the craziest part of all. None of these helicopters are trying to compete with massive luxury aircraft. They're doing something much bigger. They're redefining who gets access to flight in the first place. Smaller, cheaper, simpler, more personal. The sky used to feel distant. Now, it feels reachable. Ultralight helicopters are no longer experimental dreams for wealthy pilots. In 2026, they represent freedom, accessibility, and a completely new era of personal aviation. From rugged kit builds to futuristic turbine machines, these aircraft are proving that helicopter ownership is finally becoming realistic for ordinary enthusiasts who simply want to fly.